Welcome to the Frontline with FPM, where we talk about California politics, homeschool freedom, parental rights, and the family. I'm your host, Nathan Pierce, and thanks for joining us today. Let's jump right in and see what's going on here on the Frontline.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited today to have Andrew Pudewa with us. Thank you so much, Andrew, for agreeing to come on our podcast and for joining us today.
I am very happy to be here with you, Nathan.
Well, thank you. I have so many things that I have gotten questions from other people. I have my own questions, but it has been really fun to get to know you a little bit better just over the last couple of days through this Chia Whistle Stop tour. Um, let's just quickly mention what we're doing this week that brings us together. Why don't you explain that?
Well, I had the idea, how can I help the state organizations reach more people? And convention attendance pretty much everywhere has been going down, but there's a lot of more homeschoolers. So where's the disparity? So I kind of thought, well, if they won't come to an event, we'll go to them.
Right.
And California being such a large state and fuel being so expensive here, I don't fault people for not wanting to travel. So we've got 5 of us, right? And we are traveling in a van, and we are doing 6 cities in 5 days, a rather ambitious schedule. Started down in Temecula and then up to Visalia. Last night we were here in San Jose, and then after we finish this, we're going up to, what is it?
Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa, Redding, and then finishing in Sacramento.
Yes.
So the goal is to help people learn, what is CHIA, what is Family Protection Ministries, and I have a modicum of a following, and so I thought if I could leverage that and just bring people in where they can hear about the important work that your organizations are doing, that would be a good thing. So we got it all scheduled, and your team and Chia's team have done a great job of handling the logistics. And so for me, it's just kind of fun. I get to ride in a car for a few hours every day with interesting people and have good conversations and strategize how to, save the world and and talk and meet lots of people. It's just been very, very good. And I don't know who came up with the idea of Whistle Stop Tour, but it does evoke that kind of traditional, we're going to go out and, stump the land and bring the message to the people. So
Yeah, it does. And it's been fun. I mean, riding in the van with everybody and having conversations. And it's been really fun to get to visit with people throughout the state in such a short period of time too.
yeah.
It has been kind of a unique.
And we're of course hoping that we can gain more CHIA memberships, gain more supporters for FPM, get people to Capitol Day, just reach those people that are going to be more energized, have a better vision, and possibly become a center for connecting and reaching out and bringing people in local communities into kind of the sphere of the state organizations.
So when you look at the need to engage people with the state organization, with FPM, why do you feel that that's so important? And I mean, you mentioned that there's been a decrease in sort of engagement with conferences. The numbers have gone down there some.
Yeah.
What is it that you feel is so important to be doing this right now?
Well, two things come to mind. Number one is a lot of people have come into homeschooling and they have their own little network. They may be, part of a group like Classical Conversations, or they may be come in through a charter school. They may come in through, some little network of people, and then that's where they stay. That's where they're happy. They're comfortable. Their needs are being met, and so they're not, in some cases, even aware that there's a state organization that is designed with very dedicated, selfless people trying to help provide accurate information about how to legally homeschool in the state, accurate information about what are some of the opportunities, but I think most importantly, the work that you're doing to be vigilant, to monitor, to be aware, and bring to people's awareness potential threats to homeschool freedom. And as you've said a couple nights now, I find it almost unbelievable that the California legislature can actually pass 1,000 or more bills in 1 year. That's like probably more than 10 a day, given how much they are in session.
Right.
Who's reading these things? Who's actually aware of this great avalanche of law that, for the most part, is going to probably add restrictions and make things harder? And yeah, I'm sure there are a few laws here and there that are worthy, that we would all agree this would be a good change. But for the most part, like you said, they just
Yeah.
pass laws to pass laws.
Yeah.
It's a political game, and it's, another feather in their cap. So to make people aware that, you know, we have to be vigilant, we have to be diligent, and we have to work together to to stand against those things that would threaten our freedoms. And in a place like California, it's pretty obvious that the majority of people are probably not in favor of increased individual freedom.
Right.
At least the majority of legislatures. The majority of people may be, but getting on that edge of my life and politics, what's most important? And I think you're doing a great job to bring that awareness to people.
Well, I appreciate your energy in trying to help people be more aware, and I know that I know that a lot of people have grown in that awareness this week, and hopefully that will continue on.
Yeah, and hopefully the people we met will go out and be actively trying to promulgate the need for the awareness, and it'll grow. I feel like the whole battle's just really intensifying in the last few years.
Yeah, we definitely need more people engaged in the battles. So to switch subjects a little bit, I asked some people in my office as well as my kids
Oh,
to
fun.
ask some questions
Okay.
about what they would like to ask you if they were here running this podcast.
Okay.
So I'll start with a couple from my kids. One of my kids, Mandy, asked, "How old were you when you started IEW?"
Oh, okay. There's there's probably kind of a long story, but the short answer is I was 34 years old. I had been a full-time violin and kinder music teacher, and I was looking for a side gig, something I
Mm-hmm.
could just do, now and then to bring in a little extra money, because, teaching music isn't the greatest way to keep your wife home and support a growing family. And so I just started doing these little writing seminars. And then by the time I was 39, I was actually making more money running around teaching writing seminars and selling some videotapes, those old VHS,
Yes,
you
yes.
remember those. Then I was teaching music, so we ended up then leaving where we were in Idaho, moving to California in '09, and I went, sorry, in '99, and I went full time.
Okay.
And we lived in Atascadero, California for 10 years, and that's where I really built the Institute for Excellence in Writing into a viable business.
Okay. And you don't teach violin or music at this point, or some, or
No, when I went full time, I just poured myself into it. I was spending every available hour that I wasn't, trying to help my wife homeschool the kids
Mhm.
into building a business. So I was working late nights. I started traveling a lot. And when you do that, you kind of stop having the other things like practicing, and
Yep.
I was still teaching my own kids music a little bit, but it just wasn't a daily part of my life. And I will tell all the listeners out there, if you stop practicing for a little while and then you pick it up, you're frustrated because you don't feel like as competent as you were.
Mhm.
So then you're less motivated to practice. So then you practice less, and then you pick it up and you're worse and you don't want to practice. And it's just a downward spiral. So my hope is that before I die, I will pick up a completely different instrument
Ah,
so that I can actually get better rather than just moaning the fact that I will never be as good on the violin as I once was.
all right. So, do you have any instruments in mind?
Bagpipes.
All right.
Yes, I want to grow my hair long, wear a ponytail, get a big beard, walk around in a kilt, and blast out, powerful sound into the world so that the grandchildren will know, ha, that's grandpa coming.
I'm sure lots of people would love to come to see that.
Well, it's a dream.
Uh,
I
uh,
don't really plan to stop doing what I'm doing, and I don't think I'd go for the ponytail and long beard and kilt until I stop doing what I'm doing. So we'll see what God has for my future.
yeah, yeah. Okay, let's see. What you've talked a little bit about your music background, and I know there's a lot more to that story. You started into IEW sort of dipping your toe into it, and then going eventually full time into it. What was it that inspired you to maybe start, but also just really launch into IEW? Was it just the side gig aspect, and then um, it just sort of grew, or was it something that you got more and more excited about? What was it that
I
inspired you?
would say, a combination of both. Obviously, there's things you want to do, and then there's things that you feel called to. Those aren't necessarily congruent. But as I got into traveling around and meeting a lot of homeschoolers and teaching their kids and starting to speak at conventions and feeling like I really had some valuable insight to offer, that just became more of the thing that I felt I should do this. I really should work hard. And then would start to get stories. Oh, we used your writing program and it kind of changed our kids' attitude about writing, or this helped me understand my children better. And I did, I've always been interested in reading and research and bringing helpful information to people. So I started to do some talks like the one on teaching boys and other kids who would rather be making forts all day.
Yes.
And, I didn't do all that research, but I found it, and then I was sharing it, and then I would add in little stories of my life and my kids to illustrate the science behind it. And then that became a very popular talk. And then I kind of got into this whole area of helping people understand that if what you want is a good writer, what you really need to do more than anything is read out loud to your kids. I got into
Mm.
this big kick of trying to inspire people to read out loud. And then, I'd go to a convention. A few years later, someone would say, I heard you say this at this, and it changed our whole family life, and it's so good. So I think it was just the affirmation, that I was doing the right thing, that this was where God wanted me. There was a sacrifice for the family involved. When you travel a lot,
Yeah.
your wife has the burden of being the only parent at home, but she kind of got it. She started to really understand that we're in this together, and I'm out doing the teaching and the traveling and the building of a business, but she's supporting that by um, being enthusiastic
Hmm.
about the whole thing. So while she's been the kind of silent, invisible part of IEW, she's very, very much a part of it, as I'm sure your wife feels the same thing about your ministries.
So, so there's a been a long history of you working with homeschool families throughout all this period, with IEW, and you've worked now with multi generations,
Yeah, it's
and
fun.
that's got to be really interesting.
So yeah, I will be somewhere and meet, some 30 something year old woman, or maybe a couple, with a few kids, and she'll say, you don't remember me, but I was living in such and such a place when I was, a teenager. You came and did writing class for me, and now
Yes.
I'm homeschooling, and here's my kids, and we're going to use your program. And It's really quite gratifying in a way. And aside from my personal connection, it's a delight to see second generation homeschool families that are just thriving, like your family, like Andrew and other uh, homes kids who were homeschooled growing up, ended up getting married, or maybe married someone who wasn't homeschooling, but now they're homeschooling their own kids and tending to be very active in um, you know outreach
Hmm.
in the homeschool world and the homeschool community. So I think we are on the not the very bottom. We're really well into what appears could be an exponential growth in Christian homeschooling and family-centric learning.
So with that experience, and seeing the excitement of the current generation, what would you say are maybe differences between the generations when it comes to engaging on writing or maybe struggling with writing, and what are some challenges that maybe kids are struggling with now that maybe they weren't as much in the last generation?
Yeah, the biggest change over my career, and we'll say 25 years,
Okay.
when I've been observing homeschool families and kids and teaching writing, is that kids today just don't read anywhere near in the quantity that they used to.
Mhm.
So, 20 years ago, you go to a homeschool convention, there's a bunch of kids around, and most of them, you know, have their nose in a book. They're not terribly interested in sitting through talks, or they're in the hallway and their parents are talking to other parents. And so what do you do when you're a kid and
Sure.
you're bored? You read. That was the default. And all of that reading had the value of furnishing the mind with vocabulary and syntax and, you know, literary devices and poetic quality and ideas that were just kind of a normal part of a child's development. Today, I would say there's a, a fraction of kids. I don't even know what it'd be. I'm sure it's down to about 1/5 or maybe 1/10 of the kids read anywhere as much as how most of the kids used to read. And that is a problem on the teaching writing side, because you can't get out of a brain that some isn't in there to begin with.
Hmm.
And so what is the source? What are the primary sources, I should say, of high quality language coming in? It's much more common now to see kids at a homeschool convention and they're staring at a screen or playing a game or occupying themselves. And I don't fault anyone. I think it's somewhat accidental that we all just got into this world of screens, but the loss linguistically for language development and consequently for thinking, I fear that is not a good trend. And I don't know how it will turn around, because more and more, even the schools are pushing for the paper-free classroom. Let's just get a
Yeah.
tablet or a
Yeah,
Chromebook into
that's
everybody's,
true.
even all the way down to primary grades. And this is going to have tremendous negative consequences long term. But it's one of those things, like, you won't know the consequences of what you did until 10 or 15 years from now. Although we're starting to see it, because it was about 10, 15 years ago that the trend started. So that would be, I think, the biggest difference from my perspective. On the other hand, on the positive side, there are so many more resources and support networks and opportunities, so that someone coming into homeschooling 20 years ago, they didn't necessarily have all of that community support, all of that curriculum options, all of the online information that makes really homeschooling, if not easier, at least more manageable
Hmm.
for parents coming in today to that movement. So, yeah, there's always an upside and a downside to the passage of time.
Yeah, yeah. As we've seen a lot of growth in technology, and we've seen education um, use it a lot. What have you seen as far as there's been a lot of online classes, a lot of online education. In some cases, kids are doing all of their school online.
Yeah.
what would you say are some of maybe the benefits and maybe some of the dangers of that? Or um, I don't know. You have certainly reached a lot of people through
through video.
this video technology, but there's there's pluses and minuses
Yeah.
to some degree depending on how much you use
I,
it.
I think I would make a distinction because online is a big word
Sure.
and it means a
Okay.
lot of things. So I would make a distinction between video-based instruction,
Okay.
which is really what we offer. So
Uh-huh.
it's video of me teaching live kids, engaging them, and then being able to send that experience out to children all over the world and to parents and teachers as well. So video instruction has really the power to allow someone to connect with someone who has knowledge and enthusiasm and mastery. And so video instruction is available in all sorts of areas, whether it's let's discuss classic books together, um, let me teach you what I know about, some science thing or foreign language or whatnot. Online can also mean um, a software-based interactive thing that allows for practice of skills,
Mm-hmm.
or a game that is hopefully going to engage a child in learning and building repetition and learning things more than they would if it wasn't more game-like. And while I'm not opposed to those things per se, I do think there's danger, especially in using them with very young children. And part of what I'm always trying to help parents think is, okay, the way you're using this software, this application, this website, it who's the primary driver? Is the human telling the machine what to do, or is the machine directing the activities and thoughts of the person?
Hmm.
And that to me is fundamental because we want the proper relationship is that human beings tell machines what to do.
Yeah.
When machines start to tell kids what to do and create this immediate response dopamine circuit, like do this and you'll feel good, and it's all the way down to shooter games, but you see it in some educational software as well. I'm not sure that's really the right relationship. Also, and as you've heard me say in the talks I've been giving, screens are very visually hyperstimulating. If it's a video, it's like, okay, I'm here with you, we're looking at each other, we're talking to each other. It's a very human experience. We can send that out into the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just kind of like someone's here sitting with us. But if I'm designing a thing that's going to cause you to react, that's a different experience. So I think that screen-based information can extend human connection, but it can also replace human
Hmm.
connection. So those would be the things I would, encourage
Yeah.
people to think about.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. So, switching gears again, and this probably needs to be our last question because we have to get some other things done and get back on the road to Santa Rosa.
That's true.
Um, so, what would you say to homeschooling dads whose wives get discouraged?
Well, that's there could be all sorts of reasons as to why a wife is discouraged.
Sure.
So it would be hard to make kind of a general or categorical answer to that, but a few thoughts. Um, I'll just share in my case.
Sure.
One of the things that frustrated my wife is she's just not a naturally organized person.
Okay.
And so a lot of her frustrations just had to do with the problem of increasing demands of kids, and they get older and they want this and they want that, and she's got more stuff to deal with, and
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 younger ones.
and younger
You have
ones,
seven
seven, yeah.
children.
So I think one of the things that I did to kind of help her was just assist in helping organize things. And the way that manifested most effectively was a weekly family meeting
Hmm.
and a formal like a formal meeting. We're all going to sit down. I would print up an agenda. Every kid would have a piece of paper with the agenda that had space to take notes. The little ones couldn't take notes. I said, just draw pictures if you want, but everyone has a piece of paper.
Okay.
We're going to go through this. We're going to go over the schedule. We're going to go over any problems, complaints, requests. We're going to go over what needs to happen in this next week and who's going to do what to be sure that everyone's needs are met as well as possible. And that was a anchor for her. And many, many times she said, please let's not stop doing this. Or I'd be out of town. She'd say, well, let's be sure we get the family meeting in sometime because it helps me a lot. So that would be one thing, not telling her how to organize her life per se, but assisting in being the authority and the administrator of a time and space where being more organized was facilitated well. So I have a talk called the 3, maybe 4 best things I did as a homeschool dad.
Okay.
And that's available online if anyone wants to go to IEW.com and chat our people and ask for the dad's talk.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so, because there are a few other thoughts, the other thing is I think that, husbands don't necessarily realize that they need time alone. And when you've got a lot of kids, it seems overwhelming because you've been working really hard, but now you got to just take the kids away and give her some space.
Yeah.
And that's a personal sacrifice, but it always works out better because you've got time with kids and then she's got time alone. She's happier, happy wife, happy life. And part of that time alone might be not necessarily alone, but time to get together with other homeschooling mom friends and just talk through stuff. And, we go to conventions. We do events like this and you see these little gaggle of 3 or 4 moms.
Right.
And they're just so happy to have that mini retreat, just a couple hours to kind of think things through and talk things through and get new ideas and get re-energized. So creating that opportunity, I think, is the necessary sacrifice for a husband to make for a homeschool mom.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your wisdom, and you've mentioned several times over the last few days. I have an answer to a question often. I have a talk on that, and it's available online, and I really appreciate you being willing to just share that. And so if you have a question, there's probably a talk on that, and
if there isn't an actual recorded hour-long talk, I've got 400 podcast episodes, most of which are the response to questions we've had over the years. So it's the Arts of Language podcast.
Okay.
Of course, you just search my name. It's a pretty unusual name. And then you could look through the episodes and maybe people have questions about reading and writing challenges and dyslexia. Maybe people have questions about motivation. I have a lot on motivation. Maybe people have questions on, how to help a really talented writer.
Yeah.
A kid who really loves writing. How do you maximize that? So really quite a broad range of episodes and some special guests in there. So, I would encourage people to check that out as well.
All right. All right. Well, as we wrap up here, I just want to say thank you very much for doing this with us. And Andrew, you want to say hi real quick? This is Andrew Vandiver, president of CHIA, just stopping in to say hi. We've been all together in the van.
In the van.
And on the stage together over the last couple days. So we'll be continuing on together, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Frontline with FPM. For more information about the topics we discuss here, check out Family Protection Ministries at fpmca.org and subscribe to our channel.